Well, they say that time flies when you're having fun, and I'm going to have to say I believe them because we have reached episode 38 on the Rich Relationship Podcast with Kim and Renee. And this week, we are going to have the opportunity to talk about something we don't really like to talk a lot about, but it's a really important part of our life experience, the topic of grief and mourning. And so what did you get from our time together?
That grief is something that you're just going to have to go through. You can't rush it. No one can do it for you. So if you're experiencing a loss in your life, then you just have to go through it. And unfortunately, I think some people ignore it. Yeah. And ignoring and delaying it doesn't prevent it. Yeah. So that's something I got out of it.
Yeah, well, great. So without any further ado, we're going to introduce Vernessa Blackwell, the grief coach and the book coach.
Welcome to the Rich Relationship Podcast with Gil
and Renee, where amazing things happen. Our goal is to help build, repair, and restore healthy relationships.
Our primary focus is on the marriage relationship. However, the topics are applicable to the relationships that we value most. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.
Vernessa, we are so excited about you being here. We have the amazing Vernessa Blackwell, and she is going to not only share with us, because she is known for being the grief strategist and the joy. She helps to bring joy and restoration to people's lives. But she's also the author coach, and I can testify to that. Vernessa Blackwell, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Gil and Renee, for having me.
We appreciate your time. I know it's kind of late where you at. Where are you at, Vernessa?
In Maryland.
Oh, wow. So this is not past the bedtime, is it? We ain't keeping you up too late.
No, I'm good.
Well, we appreciate you joining us. And so before, I know you and Renee are kind of familiar with each other already, but for our listeners that don't, can you just give us a little bit of your background and who is Vernessa Black?
Well, I'm a mom, a grandmother. I have 7 grands.
Wow!
Yes, 5 grandsons and 2 granddaughters.
Wow.
My oldest grand is like 26, so I've been a grandmom for a long time.
Oh, so you're awesome. A pro. You're an expert.
That's a whole nother episode.
Right? I'm retired military. I retired from the Army. 2017, I did 24 years.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you for your service. I'm one of your brothers in arms. I'm retired Air Force.
All right. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for your service as well. An author, coach, grief strategist. Just doing my little thing now with the books, taking one day at a time, enjoying retired life.
What would you say, and you also are a widow, and I told you offline that you are the first widow that we have had on our show, and I think that is such an important part of life. Everyone wants to be a bride, everyone wants to get married, but I want you to kind of speak to what it's like to have the person you plan to spend the rest of your life with go on to be with the Lord before you.
It's tough because like you said, you plan, to be together for the rest of your lives. And when one leaves early, especially if they're young or they're not sick, I think a lot of times just if a person is, if they're sick, then you can kind of like prepare yourself. If it's the doctor's telling you, you're going back and forth, it's kidneys or something like that, I think you're a little more prepared.
Right.
But if it's an accident or an accidental death, and it's just sudden like that, and poof, they're gone, it's tough.
I know Renee called you the grief strategist. For listeners who just kind of they kind of think they know what grief is, and between grief and mourning, can you, from your expertise, kind of break down the differences between grief and mourning?
Yeah, so mourning is normally right after, you go through mourning right after a loss, after the death or after a divorce. A lot of times people, because you still can grieve from divorce as well.
Yeah.
Lost relationships, your children. A lot of people are losing kids nowadays. Yeah. So they really struggle with the loss of your children, parents. So, and then you normally go into like mourning right after, like I said, after a person passes away. Then after the people stop visiting, the calls stop coming, less and less, and people see you out because you're not married anymore, your spouse is deceased, they don't know how to approach you.
Yeah.
So everything's changed because it used to be the couple thing. Hey, you and your husband, Now you're single, so they're like, well, she's probably not going to come because, he passed away, or he's probably not going to come because she passed away. So you're not invited to certain things that you would normally used to fit in. So you have to kind of like find your new norm. Mm-hmm. And that takes a while because you don't adjust just like overnight.
What would you say is one practical thing that you practiced in your life to help you discover your new norm?
Stillness. I started journaling because, like I said, I have had to deal with a lot of death in my lifetime. My mom had 13 sisters and brothers, and I have one aunt left on my mom's side.
Wow.
My father, it was like 9 of them. So I have 3 aunts on my dad's side, but not all his brothers passed away too, as well as him. So I've had it, and my grandparents on both sides, they passed away. And then all my siblings, I had 3 sisters and a brother, and they all passed away. So I am the last one left out of 5. And that's kind of like, so I started to dig deep into grief, and try to dissect it. Because like I said, I looked at my kids, my nieces and my nephews and my cousins, and I was like, wow, we really only have one person left on mama's side. So what are they going to do? How we get through this? So me studying and learning and watching people that really be grieving, because people don't know what to say. They just look at you. It's like, and they don't know how to act until it affects them.
Right.
And when it happens to them, then they see how you feel. They're like, well, sometimes you just need to listen. Just listen to a person.
For us, we've had a lot of losses in our life as well, because like my mother was murdered by a serial killer. My mom and dad died within a few months of each other. My godmother and my grandmother. We basically don't have any parents. So Vernessa, I understand that, you normally talk to people about how to deal with grief. What would be something that in your own personal experience you realize has helped you through your whole process of dealing with being the sole survivor in your family?
Well, I started journaling a lot. Journaling really helped me starting to write about, some of my feelings and some because I was struggling with birthdays and anniversaries and any holidays, because I like that with the holidays being so different now since our family is not here. And everybody's kids is grown, so that everybody's like doing their own thing and not speaking. So it's been tough. It really has.
What have been some of the things some of the new traditions that you've started to not necessarily take the place of the old traditions, but to make things, like you said, to discover your new normal?
Well, like I said, because most of my family, my nieces and nephews are in North Carolina. So I still go home. And my mom had asked me that before she passed away. She said, Vernessa, when something happens to me, when I do pass away, I want you to continue to do things as if I was here. And my mom passed at 98. So I promised my aunt I would never stop coming home. And I would always tell my kids to continue on doing the same things that I do now. Because unfortunately, it's a debt we all have to pay.
Yes.
I don't know when.
Vernessa, you mentioned about death and you started to journal and do some things to kind of let it out. Can you talk to some of the kind of roadblocks? I know you found journaling as an outlet, but can you talk to some of the roadblocks that some people may be going through that they may not even be aware of, that is preventing them from experiencing grief?
Yeah, because like with grief, sometimes grief relates to like the thoughts and feelings that accompany a loss. Mm-hmm. From the sadness, the anger, to longing to be with the person. And on the other hand, with mourning is how you show your feelings of grief in public. Mm. How you get dressed and, for the funeral, all the funeral arrangements, people be in mourning during that time.
Would you kind of say that, I know I was looking at your book and just kind of scanning it, and as we were preparing for this, and I like one of the things that you talked about in the book when you were talking, one of the goal should be to confront the grief and to move past it, or is it like a process that can be restored when people kind of go through it?
Well, till you get to the other side, till you accept it,
right,
you have to go through. So it's something that you actually have to experience. And you're going, a lot of people will just try to avoid their feelings. They don't want to cry because like a lot of times if it's sudden death or you weren't prepared and you running around, ripping and running the whole funeral, and it's so many things you have to do in such a short period of time. So a lot of times you don't cry. You just don't. You just feel like you don't know that you're feeling. How to release the grief. So once things start to calm down, and it could be 30 days later, and you just bust out in tears. You just never allowed yourself time to grieve. And a lot of times with jobs, you can only stay off work like 3 to 5 days, and they want you to come back to work. But most of the time, you're definitely not prepared.
Now, I know you talked about the time frame. Everybody kind of handles things a little bit differently, even as they experience grief, even when they go through the process. About when I know you just mentioned time being a factor, is it something that you would say that is just for a season, or would you say it can last longer than that, where you have like kind of reoccurring moments, if you see a certain time, you may listen to a certain song, or you may hear a certain thing that brings back memories. Would that be still kind of categorized that you're still going through a grieving process?
Yes. Because certain smells, just like if it's cologne, you can smell a cologne and it'll remind you. Certain foods, certain places. If you're driving, I know me and my sister used to go to the nail salon all the time together on Saturday mornings. And every time and we had to put her in a nursing home before she passed away for a short time, trying to get her rehabilitated. And every time I go down that hill on my way to work, tears would just form in my eyes. I would just automatically just hit that certain spot where she was before she passed, and it just brought, the memory right back, just as if it was yesterday.
And, I think that's something that we need to be okay with, because the Bible talks about to lament. I think that when someone played a major role in your life, for you to think that there isn't going to be a void is very unrealistic.
Right.
And to tell someone you have 2 days, or you have 30 days, or you have however long, I don't think you can give someone a time for how they're going to grieve, because I think everyone is different. I know for me, I had one of my friend's mom, I was really close to her, and I think that her death brought on all of the grieving that I never did when my mother died and my father died. It was like a trigger. And for the first time, instead of running away from grief, I allowed myself to feel, like you talked about, the feelings and the loss. And I think most people are afraid of that feeling of being out of control. But I think that grief has a way of making us a different person. And I think when you talk about writing and stuff, that's what I see it's done in you, because you're taking something negative and you're building something beautiful with it.
Yes. Yeah, because like I said, I journal a lot, and I teach my clients to do the same. Write it down, because like I said, next year, or say 18 months from now, you'll start to, adjust and realize, okay, I must go on, but I just don't know how. You don't know the how. So like I said, but the new norm comes, as each day, unfolds, we get stronger and stronger. So you learn to live without your loved one, and knowing that they will always live on in your heart. So that's where we them in our heart. So the memories, I tell people, create all the memories you can. Take as many pictures as you, because one day that's all that's going to be left here. Is those
right.
pictures,
And you kind of mentioned it just now when you said stronger. One of the things that came to my mind was how men, we would tend to kind of hold it in. And, that old saying is, you don't show weakness, or you don't show your emotion, just from based on, like you said, working with your clients. Can you talk about how men and women may handle grief a little bit differently in the outward appearance, and some of the things that somebody can maybe use and say, this might be an indicator that I'm going through something and I just may not even be aware of it?
Yes, exactly. Because like I said, a lot of times men don't want to cry, or if they cry at home, and especially their mom, you see they got a little handkerchief, just 1 or 2 pats, and it's gone. And, then they have to go after the funeral, or they go back home, and the wife said, well, he's getting real distant,
Right.
He's not talking, but like I said, of course, if it's your loved one, you was raised up with them all your life, the majority of all your childhood life, and that was all so you are close to that person. So a lot of times the grief affects you, the relationship that you had with the person. So that is how long it takes. If you've been with somebody 30 years, you've been married to someone 30, 35 years, I mean, life is definitely different now that they're gone. So it's going to take you a while to get over that. It's not going to happen overnight.
So this is a new segment in our show that we were talking about, or we mentioned it on the previous episode, that we're going to be changing a little bit.
Yeah.
So we used to have Got Wisdom, Got Questions, but we have revised it a little bit, and we're going to be calling it Things I Wish I Knew, as it pertains to relationships. This is something that you came up with.
Yeah, because I really wanted to call it Things that make you go,
Right.
But I think that was already used already.
Yeah, it was used back in the day on the show
Yes.
that some people may have watched. But
Yes.
I think Things I Wish I Knew is a little bit more targeted for
Yeah.
what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So what you got this week?
Well, I think if I would have known when I was younger that life wasn't fair, I think I would have been better equipped to deal with the highs and the low and the good and the bad. I think that sometimes when you go through life thinking that life is going to be fair, you set yourself up for disappointment.
Right.
And so something that I wish I knew was that while life is not fair, God is just, and anything he allows, he has a purpose for it.
Right.
No matter how difficult it may be, even if it's the loss of a loved one, the sudden loss of a loved one. We're seeing a lot in the media right now. People are, seem to be leaving life a lot earlier.
Right.
And one of the things, I was listening to Tony Evans, and he was talking about the old people in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And old was not necessarily based on your age. It was when it was time for you to expire. And so we don't know who the old people are. The old person could be 5. The old person could be, the old person could be 1.
Right. There's no time frame.
There is no time. And so we really don't know when our time is going to come. And so while life is not fair, God is just. And when we approach life with the understanding that everything that happens, when the Bible says all things work together for good for those who love God and who are called according to their purpose, it allows us to approach life with a sober perspective about all the things that happen to you may not make you feel good, but there's a purpose for it.
Right. So that's good. Things I wish I knew.
Things I wish I knew. So if you want to reach out to us and you want to send in something that you wish you knew, we want you to spend some time this week downloading our app, Speak Freely, because that's the platform where you can ask questions, share wisdom, and you can also we can help you with your decision-making process. Go to the Google or the Apple App Store and download the Speak Freely app.
Speak Freely with Gil and Renee.
Yes, Speak Freely with Gil and Renee. And so this is the segment of our show called Things I Wish I Knew.
Gil and Renee Beaver's over 30-year relationship is the genesis for the Rich Relationship Podcast, which is designed to empower individuals with the tools, principles, and the community needed to unpack ourselves, our past, and our preconceived notions associated with relationships.
Let's get empty and grow together so that our lives will be filled with love and healthy, rich relationships. Now let's go into our show.
And I think that's something, like you said, you plan on things going a certain way. And I think that, not only is, we kind of talked about it, not only is a death a loss, so is a dream, a hope. And what you do in coaching people. Speak to a little bit about how because I told you, I said Vernessa is really a coach, because she's not just standing back telling you what to do. She comes alongside you and helps you through the process of making your dreams come true. Speak to some of that, what made you decide that you want to take what you went through and help other people?
Because coping with the loss, especially when my younger sister passed away, at first I felt that it was just me and her left. So okay, listen, we got this. She continue to do like Mom asked us to do, and what Cheetah and Gary would want us to do since they're not here, how we help the kids. Well, then when she passed away in 2014, I looked around and said, wow, it's just, but my younger sister, she was 3 years younger than me. She always said, well, Vernessa, if I pass away, I want you to do this and X, Y, Z. Let Vernessa handle everything, because she's good with stuff like that. But I had to when my mom got sick in 98, my sister had moved back to Carolina because she was here in Maryland. And then her and her husband separated. Her children went back to North Carolina to finish high school. And she wanted to retire from her job at the VA to go back home with them. And she asked me, she said, Mom, Vernessa, I want you to do me a favor. And what? And she said, take care of Mom. It's like, oh, okay. I guess it's my turn. I said, well, I can't be selfish because I'm your chair, so you can go ahead and do what you got to do, and I'll pick it up from here. So I think it was like 34 back then. And I just started taking care of my mom. And that was, like I said, that was one of the reasons I went back in the military, because I went in for 1 year and I didn't like it. I got out. But like I said, I worked various jobs, did the post office, shoppers, you name it, trying to make a living, and realized that those benefits was what I was needing later on in life. And I thank God that I went back, because I learned a lot. And if you deal with a lot of people, different races and nationalities. Being deployed when I went to Iraq, we lost one of our soldiers. He was like 21. So again, I was always seemed like the one, where when somebody was going through something, they always say, hey, Vernessa, well, how did you have it? I know you lost your sister, you lost your mother, you lost, you see what I'm saying? So I had to start, and I told him, I read a lot. I read, I studied, I prayed, and I asked God to give me the strength. So the Lord allowed me to get grief coach certified in 2012. Wow. My younger sister was still living. So I was like, I'm not sure if I really want to do that, because, grief, like you said, with the mourning thing, it's painful. People be really hurt. They don't know. I have a young lady that I coach. She lost her son. Her son got killed due to gun violence a couple of years ago. And she is having a terrible time. She wrote in the last book, that project that I had, she's having a
what I can say that I'm learning through this journey of learning the difference between, what do you do? Because I think that unfortunately we become so consumer oriented, like you said, to write. If we would learn to create something versus consume something, or alcohol, shopping, I think those are all just quick fixes. They don't really deal with, like you said, you got to the root of it. What are some of the, other than just writing, what are some other creative ways that people can begin to take their energy and put it into something positive?
Find something that you really like to do. Now I do a lot. I craft now, things that I never thought I would have the patience for, but I just do little cups, mugs. Some people crossword puzzles. Find your creative side. Tap into that, because that'll bring you a lot of healing too. Coloring is another thing that helps, because it's real therapeutic to color.
And I appreciate the insight that you're actually giving our listeners who may be actually experiencing grief. So if you're just joining us, we're talking to Vernessa Blackwell about grief on this episode of the Rich Relationship Podcast. And those are some very good therapeutic ways of outlets that people may not be aware that can have some awesome benefits to something that they may think is very, very simple, can pay huge dividends, in them and their healing, So one of the things that I wanted to ask you that you mentioned in your book, and I thought it was really good, about how sometimes people feel like it's affliction. They're being afflicted by a situation or a circumstance, almost like they're being targeted or they're being singled out because they're going through certain situations. And they may end up getting mad at God. And I know you talked about your losses and some of the things that you experienced with your family. What could you say to someone who may have those kind of that mindset that they feel like they're being singled out or targeted, or like they're being
why
afflicted?
is this happening to me?
Yeah, why is it happening to me?
I've learned that your trials and tribulations are only meant to make you stronger. We know where we've been, but we don't know where we have to go. So all the stuff that I went through in my life, I look back and I used to say, well, why me? But now I say, well, why not me?
Yes.
So I think the things that I went through, God was preparing me for today and beyond. And so, like I said, God's going to take you to go. When you trust him, and just like I said earlier, we didn't come here to stay. We're all vessels that's being used by the Lord. We all in line, we just don't know when we got to move to the front.
One, I love that one of the scriptures is in the book that Renee's favorite scripture is Romans 8:28. All things work together for those who love God and are called according to his purpose, and I know when you are probably going through those grief counseling training sessions and even the life that you're experiencing, you may have had those thoughts of, like you said, why me, God? Why am I going? And you just kind of alluded to it just now saying, why not me? Because he has equipped you for it. So, when people are going through those afflicted situations or grief or losses and things like that, they have to turn to what you just said, turn to God and really try to see what is the impact or what is the situation, what is it bringing out, So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is when people are going through those situations, how can they really, really want to find wholeness and find peace that may be kind of eluding them?
It takes time, but like I said, if you hold on to God's unchanging hand, he's going to bring you peace. And peace in knowing that, most of the time you've done all that you could do, for your loved one if they're sick. Because like I said, I've been around family members that were really sick, and then some that my brother had a massive heart attack where he, passed away. I talked to him earlier that day, and later on, even about 7 p.m., he had passed. He had a massive heart attack. So it's like I had to look back. You're thankful for every day,
Right,
that we're here. We thank God for the things that we've been through and we've overcome. When he gives you a message to share, we are here to help one another.
right.
So I thank you and Gil for what you all are doing as well, because it's relationships, because people are so distant now.
Yeah.
And young African American men don't know how. You see what I'm saying? Because most of them fathers were not in the home.
Right.
Yes.
That's very true.
So they don't know how to be good dads. When you're raised by a single parent, a mother, a female can teach a girl how to be a woman, but you cannot teach a male how to be a man.
Girl,
Right.
say that again.
You see what I'm saying? So that's
It's a myth.
It's a struggle. Yeah.
It
So
is.
I appreciate what you all are doing. This is really, to God be the glory, right?
Yes,
Books.
And it's our passion, because just like you, I think that when we take our pain, we can discover our message.
Yes.
And it's something we always wanted. We always wanted healthy relationships with our parents and our siblings, and it didn't always happen. And so for us, just like you, we're like, how could I take what I'm going through so that it will matter for eternity and it could be able to help somebody else?
True, but just like when you were saying that, what God just dropped in my spirit, you had to be in unhealthy situations before you would know what healthy.
Yes.
Right.
And so many times I think people want the blessings of God without God. They want a testimony without a test. They want to be strong without any resistance. And I think that, conversations like this, your book, the podcast, makes people realize what you're going through. It's not just you. You're not the only person that's had a loss. You're not the only person that's been disappointed. And it's not that you want to be insensitive to people, but I think a part of it, as we begin to share, you're not alone, it makes it easier for you to not put the focus just on you. And I think that's a big part of it, is when you say draw or write, you're saying take the focus off of just you, because when you're gone, you'll have something to leave behind.
Yes, absolutely.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you before we give you an opportunity to talk about some of your upcoming projects and some of the book collaboration that you guys are working on. I know that's something that's really, really great. How important would you say it is for someone who may be going through a rough time in their life to have community involved and people surrounding them and some of the things that they may be experiencing? How important would you say that is when someone is really going through a rough time?
I think they need to be around, because then you'll realize that you're not alone. So when you stay connected, it's when when you disconnect from everybody in the world and just feel like you shut yourself in, then you're grieving alone, and it's worse. So if you stay connected and stay in church and stay, around your circle or your community, or get counseling or coaching or whatever that you may need, it's going to help you heal and get there faster.
Awesome advice.
So now let's talk about the joy stuff. Let's get to the joy.
It's pretty heavy. So why don't you tell people about some of the upcoming projects and some of the things that you want to highlight, and even how people can get in touch with you if they need someone to talk to. And you're just, after hearing you talk about it, they just say, I think I want. How can people reach you and talk about some of the things you guys got coming?
So my website is www.griefhelpline.coach. They can go to my website. They can reach me. I do take phone calls, and my number is 240-270-1522. And the projects that we are working on is finding joy in the journey.
Yay!
Yes, and thank you so much, Gil and Renee, for being a part of this project. I'm so excited about it.
It is a joy to be a part of something that we know is going to impact people's lives.
Thank you so much.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you as we come to the end of it, I know you just mentioned about finding joy in the journey. Why don't you tell a little bit about what that project is all about for those who may not be familiar, even though the title kind of says it all. But why don't you talk a little bit about how that came about and how God put that in you?
Well, I'm a 15-time author, and 9 of my books are collaborations. I love collaboration because you're connected, like you said, with the community of people helping to market the project. Since I retired, I do not have a lot of, friends. And like I said, I was engaged to a guy, and Paul was killed in a car accident in 2007.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so like I told you, tragic, just stuff after stuff, but God, He's working it out. But like I said, you do miss them, and so now the Finding Joy in the Journey project was birthed out of especially after retirement. What makes you happy now, Vernessa? Where are you trying to go? I mean, I still love to travel, but I still want to help people. Yeah. And I knew with the project, I did Your Wings Were Ready, but my heart was not. And that was with 20 women. It was a great project. Everybody shared a chapter. And of course, some of them said, well, what are we going to do after this? I was like, well, we could do something else. I said, well, we're going to do something shorter, because that was to get more people. But a couple of little young ladies, they started their own collaborations. Some of them are writing books. And that's what the project is all about. I want everybody to be able to birth a book. I want to teach you all as a group, collectively, all 90 people, how to write a book. What is it that you need to birth the products that you want to create and put out here? I'm a strong believer that we had to create a legacy and leave it to our family, because I know Uncle Sam took care of me with the nice retirement check, but that goes when I go. So I got to at least create products so that my kids, my grandkids, and their kids will have products. So you have to change the mindset. There's a lot of distraction going on right now in our community. So we have to teach them. And I know, Gil, that you learned too in the military. You seem saying so resourceful about them helping us and giving us the tools that we need. So so with the podcast and books and stuff, these things will be left behind long after we're gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that is, to me, that's a way of almost telling the enemy, so this is what you thought was going to destroy me, but what it really did. And I remember reading something that said they didn't realize that when they put Jesus in the ground that he was a seed. And so sometimes when the enemy's trying to kill something, what he really does is he does produce something in us that God was really trying to push out. And I'm so excited and grateful to be a part of this journey, this author journey, because there is so many people out there who don't necessarily have the best intentions. And so when you can find someone who really has a heart to help and serve and give back, I would encourage anyone, if you want to write a book, if you're contemplating writing a book, please reach out to Vernessa, because not only has she written books that are bestsellers, it's her desire to show you how to do the same thing. And to me, I believe that success without a successor is failure. And Vernessa, you are definitely leaving a legacy of authors and people who understand grief and the benefits of community and relationships. And so we thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate this episode, even though it was a little heavy, but sometimes we need heavy. Yes, it helps us get lighter. Because it's reality.
It is.
It's really reality. As we sign off, Vernessa, one more time, can you give them your contact, and if they want to be a part of a future book collaborating project, or even if they just want to reach out and talk to you?
Okay, you can find me on Facebook. I am known as the Grief Strategist on Facebook. My website is www.griefhelpline.coach. My books are on Amazon. There's the Grief Helpline, and my grief kit is out there. And this project is Finding Joy in the Journey, the devotional.
So Vernessa, if you were going to speak to our audience and tell them one thing that you want to leave them with, what would that one thing be?
Enjoy life. Take life one day at a time, but give it your best shot. Find your joy in the journey.
And with that, we'll say we are stronger together.
Let's grow.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your investment in time. Remember to subscribe to the show and hit the notification icon to be notified when new episodes are posted on the podcast platform that you're listening from.
Or you can always find us on our website at richrelationshipsus.com or our YouTube channel, Rich Relationships with Gil and Renee. If you found this podcast helpful, or you think it could help someone that you know and care about, please pass it along and share it with them.
And also, you can always send your questions and comments to richrelationships.us@gmail.com. This is a weekly podcast, and the new episodes are going to be posted on Monday by 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we're stronger together.
Let's grow.